I bet you didn't know sneezing can actually be deadly, or that Thomas Edison wasn't technically the inventor of the first light bulb. Well, no matter how absurd this may sound, it's all true. Today I've got another 20 random facts that might not seem it, but are 100% true. Most people think fire engine and fire truck mean the same thing, but they don't. If your house is on fire, you'd probably want a fire engine because they're the ones with the big water pump and hoses that actually put out the fire. A fire truck, on the other hand, just carries the ladders, rescue tools, and other firefighting equipment. Back in the day, hat makers used mercuric nitrate to turn fur into felt. The chemical made the fibers rough and easier to mat together, but breathing in the vapors over time led to mercury poisoning, with hat makers experiencing tremors, mood swings, and hallucinations. They eventually stopped using mercury in the hat making process, but the phrase "mad as a hatter" lives on. Anyone would be over the moon to score a hole-in-one, right? Well, yes, to a point. And that point is the point at which you realize you now have to shout all your friends' drinks, gifts, and a party to celebrate. This can get really expensive, and that's why insurance companies offer Japanese golfers hole-in-one insurance. It covers up to $5,000 for those hole-in-one celebrations at a cost of around $100 a year. The sandwich is named after 18th century aristocrat, the 4th Earl of Sandwich. He was a passionate gambler, so rather than pausing to eat, he asked for some meat between bread so he could eat while he was playing. And the idea caught on. Soon everyone was ordering the same as sandwich, eventually shortened to just a sandwich. Alright, so Dutch hackers managed to get into Donald Trump's Twitter account twice. They didn't use some fancy new hacking technology, they literally just guessed his password. The first was in 2012. Trump was doing the rounds on his hit show The Apprentice, so it made sense for him to use the show's main catchphrase as his password. The hackers gave the phrase "you're fired" a go, and it worked. Then in 2016, just as Trump was campaigning for president, they tried again and succeeded with the password MAGA 2020! While I'll agree it's still not the most secure password, it's encouraging to see the use of some numbers and special characters. Think the term freelance is a modern concept? Well, it's not. It dates back to the early 1800s when a freelance was an independent knight for hire who provided their services to the highest bidder. Over time, it stopped referring to sword-wielding warriors and instead described someone who works independently, taking jobs from different clients instead of being tied to any one employer. Cheetos are specifically engineered to melt in your mouth. This phenomenon is called vanishing caloric density. It's where your brain is essentially tricked into thinking you're consuming fewer calories. They're designed to dissolve so quickly that your body doesn't get the usual signals of fullness, so naturally, you'll eat more. There was a reason the staircases in medieval castles spiraled clockwise, and that reason was to give the castle defenders an advantage in battle. Most knights were right-handed, and the design meant attackers going up the staircase couldn't swing their swords properly because their sword hand would hit the wall. This gave those descending the staircase free movement and the perfect strike angle to defend their castle. Needlefish may look harmless, but looks can be deceiving. These unassuming fish launch themselves out of the water at speeds of up to 60 kilometers per hour. And yeah, jumping out of the water may not be that big of a deal unless that same fish has a nose shaped like a javelin. There's been multiple fatalities due to needlefish impaling, the most recent being in 2024, where an Italian surfer was impaled through the chest by a needlefish off the coast of Indonesia. Edison gets all the credit for inventing the light bulb, but he actually wasn't the first. Plenty of people beat him to it. There was Humphrey Davy in 1802, Warren de la Rue in 1841, Joseph Swan in 1878, and the list goes on. But there was a problem. Their light bulbs didn't last. Edison's big claim to fame was that he was able to create the first commercially viable, mass-produced light bulb. But it wasn't really the first light bulb. You can pay a travel agency in Japan to take your stuffed animal on vacation. Yeah, that's right. The agency is called Unagi Travel, and how it works is you mail them your teddy. They take it out on tours, visiting all the famous landmarks, and even share photos and videos as proof. All up, it lasts about 3 weeks before your stuffed animal turns up on your doorstep back from their overseas jaunt. And don't worry, you won't lose them in the mail because they come with their very own tracking code. Sneezing is dangerous, specifically suppressing a sneeze. Sneezing shoots out air at around 160 kilometers per hour. That's a whole lot of pressure that can do a whole lot of damage. There's been cases where holding in sneezes have led to ruptured blood vessels and broken ribs, with one man even ending up in hospital after sneezing and bursting his throat. So the next time you try and be polite by holding in a sneeze, don't. Yes, a single sneeze can release approximately 40,000 drops of saliva, mucus, and respiratory fluid, but it's probably better than rupturing your throat. Back in 1915, chemist Thomas Lyle Williams noticed his sister, Mabel, using coal dust and petroleum jelly to darken her lashes. That got him thinking that there has to be a better way. So he experimented with Vaseline and color additives and ended up creating the first commercial mascara. Thomas launched it under the name Maybelline, a combination of Mabel and Vaseline. There's a company that wants to sell you sunlight at night. Reflect Orbital is launching satellites with giant mirrors to bounce sunlight back to Earth. The aim is to help solar farms generate energy longer without relying on costly battery storage. And if you're worried about it always being light outside, don't. These mirrors are precisely aimed to project a 5-kilometer wide spot of light, so there's no risk of them lighting up the whole night sky. Here's a weird one. So despite Jack Daniels being made in Lynchburg, Tennessee, you can't actually buy it there. That's because Moore County, where Lynchburg is located, is designated a dry county, meaning it can be made but not sold. But there is a bit of a loophole. The distillery has its own rules, meaning you can take a tour and try a sample or even buy a special bottle from the gift shop. Just make sure you don't open that bottle until you're somewhere else. It takes about 20 minutes after eating for your brain to realize you're not hungry anymore. Released by fat cells, the hormone leptin regulates appetite by telling your brain to stop eating. But if you eat too fast, the leptin doesn't have time to work, and you'll end up feeling like I do after pretty much every meal. There's a device designed specifically to derail trains. The name isn't all that original, it's called a derailer. There's a couple of different versions. One works by lifting one side of the wheel slightly so it slips off the track, while the other completely blocks the rail. But why would you need to derail a train? Well, it's commonly used in rail yards or near maintenance areas to prevent runaway trains from entering active tracks. In 1977, a television station in southern England was hijacked by a mysterious voice calling itself Vrillin of the Ashtar Galactic Command. For 6 minutes, Vrillin went on to warn humanity to change its ways or face disaster, speaking of higher beings watching over the Earth and how humanity must make the right choices and lots of other impending doom type stuff. It was thought to be a hoax, but no one was ever caught, making it one of the most bizarre broadcast interruptions in history. Imagine 3,000 people crossing a street at the same time from all directions. That's Shibuya Crossing. It's Tokyo's busiest intersection, surrounded by shopping centers and flashing billboards. It's the country's version of Times Square. And Shibuya Crossing isn't just any old pedestrian crosswalk, it's known as a scramble crossing. This is where all traffic is stopped at once and people stroll across the road from all directions at the same time. In 1981, Chicago put out a challenge to all engineers to build a structure that would outshine the Eiffel Tower. So they did, and George Ferris came along and proposed a giant rotating wheel that had 36 compartments and could lift passengers 80 meters up in the air. And the result? The world's first Ferris wheel. Well, there you have it. 20 weird, mind-blowing, and completely random facts. Who would have thought there was a guy named the Earl of Sandwich, or those cheeky people over at Cheetos actually want us to buy more? Crazy, right? If this video didn't quite quench that thirst for facts, fear not. There's plenty more where that came from to have you scratching your head and thinking, I can't believe that's real. But if you've got other things to do, I get it. I probably wouldn't want to watch me for too long either. When you're ready to come back, say weekly, there'll be a new fact video for your binging pleasure. Now that I've got 7 days to get another video up, I'm gonna head down to the golf course, and don't worry, I don't have insurance, but there's no risk of me getting that elusive hole-in-one. So until then, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.